Primary focus of today is to really kind of just reload into the migration and start to talk through the actual process with you all. I do have a lot of screenshots from both the Alertus notification system as well as from AlertAware that I'm going to share to kind of support the discussion. And obviously, when we have an opportunity to meet with you all and start to move through this process, we'll be doing a lot more of the sharing in advance of the actual migration, just to ensure that you all are comfortable with the process. So I thought what we'd do today is just kind of start off, just reground ourselves into what we're dealing with here with regard to the end of life for the Alertus Recipient app that we've known and maybe loved over the last 10 years or so. That app did come about at the tail end of 2014 and really saw the light of day in 2015. So it's definitely our venerable warhorse in that regard. And then we'll just kind of touch on what AlertAware Mobile is very quickly. And then I want to get into the main areas of the actual migration process. So we'll talk with you all about what to expect when you do meet with myself, my sales engineers, and then as we move forward into the actual kickoff meeting with the implementation team, what you should come to expect from us in that regard, and what we'll be seeking to understand from you all as we meet with you. And then we'll really get into the actual system configuration and preparation for the cutover that will happen for many of you all later on this year. So we're going to talk about account provisioning. We're going to talk about how we migrate the data. We're going to talk about the invitation process, because I'm sure you all have questions with regard to exactly what your end stakeholders are going to experience. We'll talk about configuring AlertAware, what we need to do to configure Alertus so that you really have that seamless experience, and everything with the exception of the mobile app itself being different from the recipient app. Activation pathways and practices will be identical to what you currently experience, but a lot more robust and a lot more resiliency, redundancy, if you will, in the event that something does happen to your Alertus notification system on-prem, or if you do have it up in the cloud. And then we'll talk a little bit about testing and cutover, which will obviously be influenced largely by you all, and what we're here to support during that process. And then I'll be happy to take any questions that you all have at the tail end. So let's go ahead and start by just kind of regrounding with regard to the retirement of the app. The main reason why we are transitioning away from the current Alertus Recipient app is that it was developed when mobile apps were still really emerging and really starting to become popular within mobile technologies. So it was developed 2013, 2014, rolled out, as I mentioned, at the tail end of 2014. But the way the mobile apps were structured back at that time, you didn't really have that dynamic aspect unless it was some sort of video game. You didn't really have the ability to get away from the use of images, fixed images in the background that served as the underpinnings of the user interface. And therefore, it was largely static and very rigid, not flexible at all. We had the ability to, depending upon the use case that the customer was going to implement, we had the ability to utilize one of three visual templates on the background to really kind of structure the way that the Alertus Recipient app presents and functions. Absolutely no flexibility for you all, our customers. If you had an evolving use case, you actually had to start all over at square one and roll the app out anew. For example, if you wanted to add a public safety number, we had to, in essence, reskin your instance, which resulted in a new generation, new deployment. So very rigid. We have a lot more flexibility moving forward, as you might imagine, and I think all of us expect it at this point with regard to where we're at in 2024. The other thing that was kind of a little bit unique was that the recipient app is really deemed to be a personal communication technology, and And those types of technologies with an emergency notification are more frequently found within what we call distributed recipient mass notification solutions, or DRMNS, that provide SMS, text, email, voice calls, push notifications. Obviously, at the time, we had a lot of customers that were looking for a mobile app and wanted to see that type of functionality within Alertus, and we were more than happy to develop that and roll it out. But as Alertus has evolved over the past decade, along with the industry, we definitely understand that the more appropriate fit is within the DRMNS world. So Alertus does have a solution that's called AlertAware. It's been out and available to customers now for right at a little bit over 2 years, but it is a distributed recipient mass notification solution, and the push notification tool is the AlertAware mobile app. It was always envisioned that AlertAware mobile app would become the app du jour, if you will, for Alertus notification solutions across the board. But things were rushed a little bit by some other external forces with regard to the impact on that legacy architecture that I talked about. So what that meant for us was, as that was disclosed to us and we started to evaluate the impact on the recipient app functionality, it became very clear very quickly that the current mobile app won't function in 2025. There's, without completely and totally re-architecting and re-engineering that mobile app, it would not be able to function within the iOS and the Android app space in 2025. So the cutover, or the end of life, if you will, retirement of the Recipient app had to be announced a little bit earlier, I think, than what some of us were anticipating. Much more compressed time cycle for a potential cutover to the new technology. But one of the questions that I do get frequently with regard to AlertAware, because it is not necessarily something that is on the tip of our tongues in conversation with existing Alertus customers, because we respect the fact that many of them already have a third-party DRMNS solution. So AlertAware's been kind of flying underneath the radar for a large percentage of our customer base. But AlertAware is fully developed and operated by Alertus Technologies, and it is a SaaS solution. It's actually hosted within the same AWS cloud, AWS East, that the current Alertus Mobile Gateway is hosted in. So, and one of the biggest strengths in this is that for the better part of the 2 years that the product has been live, it does enjoy a very robust two-way native integration with the Alertus notification system. So what is AlertAware Mobile? We've kind of touched on it a little bit, and it obviously is the push notification aspect of that personal notification solution. It is hosted up in AWS East, as I mentioned, and it has a lot more capability than the Recipient app. I think that is the one thing, if you have not yet had the opportunity to see it, please, during this process, push us to provide you with a demonstration of it. More than happy to show it, but the capabilities are very, very robust with regard to the AlertAware mobile app. You're not going to lose any of the functionalities that you have currently with the Recipient app, and you will gain more capability with this new application. So AlertAware will be able to, if you're using the incident reporting use case within the Alertus Recipient app currently, the strength in the new approach is that you have two different pathways that you can take in leveraging that incident reporting. The incident reporting from the AlertAware mobile app can be just very localized to your system administrators, those individuals that you want to receive and evaluate those incidents before they escalate alerting. Or in other instances, you can actually establish it to where when a stakeholder initiates an incident report on the AlertAware mobile app, it automatically initiates one or more preset alerts within the Alertus notification system. So again, that dynamic edge alerting that Alertus does support, that is fully apparent and still available to you with the migration to this new mobile app. The other really cool thing that gets added with this app, Ben's opinion, is two-way chat, which is something that is not supported currently by the Alertus Recipient app. So in those instances, as I mentioned, and even in instances where you do want the incident report to kick off a preset alert automatically, anytime an incident report is initiated within AlertAware, you have the opportunity to engage with a direct two-way chat between yourselves, plural, anybody who is an owner or an administrator that we set up with regard to AlertAware can engage in this two-way chat with the reporting individual to collect more information and ensure that the response is appropriate to what you're able to learn and validate. A lot more capacities too with regard to imagery. Alertus is currently limited to 3 images, whereas AlertAware, we typically recommend no more than 10. But you also have the ability for polling, which we cannot do in the Recipient app, and you also have the ability to attach information, response information. So let's say, for example, you're initiating a lockdown, you have the ability to attach up to 10 megabytes the response protocol, just so that your affected stakeholders, in the event that chaos, fog, friction, and adrenaline get in the way of remembering what they should do to protect themselves, they have that resource immediately available to them in the AlertAware mobile app. So let's actually go ahead and start talking about the migration itself and the process. What we anticipate, before I get into this, we've been sitting back and kind of comparing where we're at with the migrations that we've been executing thus far. And our going in thought was that on average, customers would need to spend right at 4 hours working with Alertus to get themselves into a position to where at a future point, you can go ahead and cut over. So you do have the ability to operate the AlertAware mobile app in parallel with the Alertus Recipient app up until the time that the Recipient app fails to operate. And obviously, we'll be keeping you all posted of exactly when that is likely to occur following December 31st. We don't anticipate that it's going to be long after that particular date, but you will have the ability to operate these two in parallel and then go ahead and cut over on the date that it makes most sense to you. But the very first part in the migration process is to actually sit down with us. You're either going to be sitting down with me or you're going to be sitting down with one of my 4 sales engineers. And we've got a questionnaire that we want to work through with you. And what we want to capture is who your points of contact are going to be for the migration. It can be more than one individual. And if we do need to work with more than one individual, we definitely want to capture that up front so that our communications remain on point with you all. The next thing that we're going to ask you all is, what is the current version of your Alertus server? And you can find this by navigating down to the bottom left of your Alertus console and hovering over system info, and it will show 3 different versions. And what we're looking for there is the architecture version. And we want to make sure that you're on version 5.22. If you're not on version 5.22, the very first thing that we're going to do following that meeting with you all is to establish a support case so that we can work with you all to get you migrated from wherever your current version is, because it might not just be one update to get you up to 5.22. If you're on a version prior to 5.20.4, we will likely want to bring you up to 5.20.4 and then migrate you forward to 5.22.6 currently. We could be on a different increment by the time we get into this process with you all. But ultimately, we've got to be on that 5.22 architecture, because that's where all of the APIs and all of the software work on the back end area for Alertus has been conducted to make sure that we've got that really seamless experience for you all. with the Alertaware mobile app. We're also going to talk with you all to make sure that we fully understand exactly how you're currently using the Recipient app. For example, are you just using it to push emergency notifications out to affected stakeholders? Are you also using the personal safety number? Are you using incident reporting? Are you one of the few customers that we have, but we do have a few customers that actually send an email listing that's cultivated from Active Directory, to initiate that push notification? We want to make sure that we understand that so that we can set your expectation for an appropriate cutover time, because some of those functionalities are being introduced a little bit later in this quarter. In particular, that Active Directory email activation pathway, that's not going to be available till on or about December 10th of this year. So we do want to determine that earliest cutover date. Now, that does not mean that you cannot start the migration process, because as I mentioned, you can operate things in parallel. And there is some work that needs to be done to configure Alertaware so that it is ready to be activated by Alertus. And we also, within Alertus, there's a little bit of work specific to the alert service creation and the nesting thereof within your existing preset alerts. We've got to have that in place before you can, test the system and then determine exactly when you want to go ahead and cut over. The other thing that we'll be asking you is what date do you want to get started? And obviously, as I just mentioned, you can get started as early as you're comfortable in doing so. And we are not, just because you start with us, we are not going to set a deadline based on that start date as to when you've got to cut over. That is fully controlled by you. And we are here as your partner to support you guys through this process, because when I sit there and I look at this process, just from the mechanical aspects of it, there are a lot of steps, but they're not overly burdensome. They're not overly, they're just not overly complex. The complexity really comes in on two different factors. Number one is you all taking the time to take a look at your existing message mapping within your Alertus notification system to understand exactly which preset alerts you currently have built that are going to be affected by this migration. And then even more so, it's the education and awareness effort with your stakeholders, which we fully recognize is very considerable. And we're here to help you in that regard in any way that we possibly can as well. So once we get through that initial conversation with you all, we're going to create a support case, a mobile migration case, if you will. And that's how we're going to track your progression and monitor, activities and next steps. We will then ask you to complete an Alertaware data sheet, which really is asking you to identify those individuals that you want to have set up as an Alertaware owner and Alertaware admins. Those are the two primary roles that we're focusing on. You can, and we do recommend that you do have at least two owners and as many administrators as is required. There's not a limitation on you all in that aspect in any way, shape, or form. Once we have that back, we can actually schedule a migration kickoff call, and the implementation can actually begin. So when we get that data sheet back from you, what we're going to do is we're going to provision your Alertaware instance, and we'll stand that up. And what you see about on the screen is what we'll be going through to create an organization. We are going to give your organization the name that you all have with us as a customer, unless you designate otherwise. There will just be a brief description in there that you'll have the ability to modify once we've kind of given you the keys to the system, if you will. If you have provided us with a safety contact number in advance, we will go ahead and pre-program that into the system. And then we will also identify it with your primary country of operation. And in this case, we do recognize that we have customers in Australia, throughout Europe, Middle East, Central, South America. But what we want to focus on here is what is the primary country that the organization is operating in, i.e., where's the headquarters, and then we'll get that set up. So a big part of this as well is that based upon that sheet that you provide us, that data sheet, we will enter those individuals as your system owner, your system admins, and our process is a little bit unique. And I think for those of you that have invited users from the Alertus notification system, you have the ability to generate an email that goes out to those individuals to invite them to finalize their credentials and establish their account. It's no different in this regard. When we add owners and admins into the system, it is an invitation process. So those designated individuals will receive an email with a link. They'll click on the link and it will ask them to go ahead and establish their password. They can update their personal contact information. They can add additional contact information if they like, and then it will walk them through the opt-in, opt-out process. And you'll see a little bit more on that. It's going to be identical. When I talk about the mobile app user invitation process, the opt-in, opt-out process that you'll see depicted on the screen, identical to what your owners and admins will go through. And then we will provide, we normally get together with our new customers and spend about an hour with them, orienting them to the user interface, what we call the Alert Aware console, just to make sure that you're familiar with it. It is not as complex as the Alertus notification system can be, the Alertus console. The Alertus console, depending upon the role, can be very cumbersome because of all the functionality that the system has. And cumbersome might not be the right word. It's got a lot of features, a lot of bells, a lot of whistles, a lot of different tabs that you can access. Within Alert Aware, obviously, we're just focusing on those 4 modalities. We're focusing on contacts, i.e. those individuals that are going to receive the alerts, whether they be a mobile app user or otherwise. And then obviously the alert templates that will be activated by Alertus. So once we're done with the account provisioning and we've had an opportunity to kind of meet with you, get you familiar with the interface, we'll obviously identify the next steps. And the very next step that we recommend is that we sit down and walk you through the Recipient app data download. We can definitely participate in a review thereof, but you may need some time to do that yourself, just depending upon how many subscribers you currently have that have been exported into that CSV file. And then once you're ready to go, we'll be able to migrate that data into Alert Aware. As I mentioned before, we do need to ensure that each of your Alertus notification systems is on version 5.22. Currently, we're 5.22.6. If you're on 5.22.1, that is fine. 5.22.6 is where we're currently migrating or updating, I should say, current Alertus server customers that are seeking to update their server. That would be what I would recommend that you anticipate, is that we will migrate you over to 5.22.6. And then what we'll do from a migration perspective, just so you understand the mechanics of it, we will ask you to log in as an administrator into the Alertus console. You'll access the Alertus middleware, which is down in the bottom left-hand corner of the Alertus console. I think it's far right tab of those 3 that are down in the bottom left. And then within the middleware, there's a mobile app section, and we've got a new area in here that's called Export Mobile Users. You'll click on the green button that I have highlighted, and it will download a CSV file to your computer. We then recommend that you take an opportunity to review and update that data accordingly. And once you're ready, then we will get back together with you all. We'll have you log into the Alert Aware console, either as an owner or an admin. Does not have to be an owner role. And then we'll import those mobile users into the system using our data sync functionality, which you can see depicted in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. So basically what we'll be looking for is for the very first upload, we're going to be looking for a manual import of that CSV file. typically from a directory. And again, you can kind of see a depiction down there. Once we import the users, you actually have the ability to monitor the status of the import. And in the event that something errors, which I would not necessarily anticipate unless for some reason there's an email address in your listing that has a special character that was acceptable to Alertus that is not acceptable to AlertAware. I wouldn't anticipate that we will have any import errors, but they could occur. And the nice thing about AlertAware is that within the console itself, if it does complete and it does have errors, you have the ability to click on the name of the import that just completed and evaluate those errors and take a look and compare it to the line item within the CSV that AlertAware is rejecting for whatever reason. And in this case, it'll either be user ID, primary email, or something amongst the groups that are listed within the CSV file. But again, we don't really anticipate too many issues or challenges in that area. So the very next process or step in the process really is kind of transparent to you guys, because you'll already be in the system as a user, as an admin or an owner. Now, obviously, if you used a different email to subscribe to alerts for your organization, you'll more than likely wind up importing yourself as what we call a reader within AlertAware, and you'll receive an invitation. And what you see on the screen is a representation of an email that comes out from AlertAware depicting that invitation. So once your invitee has reviewed the email, they would click on the complete the account setup button, and this will take them into the next step in the invitation process. The very first thing that the system is going to do is recognize I've got a brand new user. They don't have a password yet, so we're going to send them to a link where they can indicate they've forgotten their password. They'll type in the email that they received the invitation at, and then click reset my password. They'll get a confirmation from the system that, that AlertAware has sent an email to that email address, assuming that it's a valid account, and they'll be able to navigate over to that email, click on the button to reset their password, and then what you see depicted in the lower right-hand corner, very similar to anything else that we usually see, the ability to designate that new password and then confirm it and then submit it. The one thing I will mention is that with regard to, you see up in the upper right-hand corner, English with a drop-down menu. We do support English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic currently within the interface at this level. So once the password has been updated, they'll go ahead and log in to the AlertAware console. The first thing that will populate at that point is they'll be prompted to update their profile. And initially, the only thing that will be populated in here would be the username that you see there, bbrewer+99@alertus.com, as well as the email address that's associated with the account. And those two will be identical for this process. First name, last name, and phone number will be blank. It is not required that they enter a phone number. However, they do have the option to do that. The benefit of adding the phone number is that if you do have a use case where you're reliant upon incident reporting, a part of the incident report is that when it comes in and you start to evaluate that incident, you have the ability to see who initiated the incident, what their phone number is, very similar to Alertus, their location, so you get an opportunity to see those data points. But if we don't have the phone number, you won't necessarily know how best can I reach out and call Ben in this particular example. So it might be something that you want to encourage with your stakeholders during that education and awareness effort, but this will not limit, it won't prevent the mobile app from functioning. It just might have that one limitation if you do have the incident reporting use case that you want to support. Now, once I get through and I add things to my profile, and I can add up to 3 phone numbers, I can also add an additional 2 email addresses. Again, not overly relevant for a push notification case, but just so you know what your recipients can do when they're updating their profile. But as soon as I hit save on that particular window, it's going to go ahead and take me over into the opt-in, opt-out determination area of the interface. And I'll go ahead and, kind of work through, do I want to subscribe to receive push notifications? Obviously, if they opt out here, they will not receive any push notifications, and they will show up within your database, as they'll still be in your database. It does not remove them from your database, but it does document for you their opt-out determination. In the event that something does happen, they come back and say, well, you didn't send me a push notification. If they opted out, you'll have that kind of legal record within the system to be able to support your position as to why they did not receive that alert. But it will walk them through their opt-in, opt-outs with regard to how the mobile app functions and how the system functions, and it will walk them through everything that you see on the screen. So the 2 that are most impactful to the push notification side are the one that you see depicted up at the top, and then the location access. As with the Recipient app, the mobile app users do have the ability to enable or disable location access. They also, even if they opt in here, they still have the ability to, temporarily suspend location access via the device. That's just something that we cannot prevent an individual from doing in accordance with law. It will also walk them through the opt-in, opt-out for SMS, voice, and email. This is not important. It will not impact your guys' system if you are only using the push notification system. But for those customers that we do have that are using AlertAware, but they're not currently using push notification, when we add these individuals into the system, they'll be able to reconfirm, if you will, what what their options would be in this particular aspect. And then we'll go ahead and get into the AlertAware configuration. And obviously, a lot of these activities can be ongoing simultaneously while other activities are still in the works of completing. But the things that we'll work with you on is, if we did not have that safety contact number when we initially established your account, but you decide that you want to invoke that capability within the mobile app, you'll be able to enter in your 10-digit phone number, or I should say your safety contact phone number, because we recognize that some might just be 3 digits, some might be 4 digits, some might be 7, others may be 10. But whatever that is, you can enter that in there and it will automatically enable within the mobile app. But you'll also, at least as the account owner, and we will need to make sure that when we're working this aspect of it, that we are working with the AlertAware owner, you'll have the ability to enable or disable the incident reporting feature at your discretion. As I mentioned earlier, one of the strengths of this particular approach is that, unlike the Alertus Recipient app, where once you made a decision on what you were going to do with regard to safety contact or reporting an incident, you were kind of locked into it unless you wanted to roll it out again. These are features and functionalities. If you decide that you want to start out incrementally with just the push notification itself, no incident reporting, no safety contact number, you can incrementally introduce these features over time. That is solely at your control, so long as you're able to log in as the system owner. System admins cannot make these types of alterations to the organization behavior. And then probably one of the more, it's not really tedious, but one of the longer duration activities that we'll be involved in is integrating AlertAware with Alertus and Alertus with AlertAware. So as I mentioned before, we do have we've got an awesome two-way integration between these two platforms, and the ability to nest one within the other really unparalleled, with regard to these types of systems. So it's fully up to you as to whether you want to be able to integrate AlertAware to activate Alertus as a fallback in the event that something happens to your Alertus notification system, your Alertus server. You'll still have the ability to get out to AlertAware and use push notifications, but you could also utilize that pathway to activate Alertus. We'll be able to initiate that integration within the AlertAware console. We'll also work with you all. Again, we'll need the owner on the line for this one. We'll generate an API key within AlertAware, and then we'll step over to Alertus, and we'll put that integration in place. And then from there, what we would ask of you all, and we kind of enter into this discussion early in the process, is just that you take the time to review your current Alertus system message mapping, your preset alerts, how are your groups structured, how are your preset alerts being activated. All of those types of things are very important to understand when it comes to configuring AlertAware, because those final two actions there, they can get very complex, or they can be very, very simple and straightforward. So if you kind of envision a use case where Alertus is going to pass alert content into AlertAware and target the group or groups, or maybe all, what we would then do is just create template categories and what we call one-touch templates, which is really the equivalent of a preset alert if you attended the last webinar, that would be activated by Alertus. So what you see in the lower right-hand corner, that's a depiction of a tile within AlertAware. Once we create a one-touch template, you have the ability to either list them out, vertically, or you can have them in this tile format, which is what I prefer personally. I'm a lot more visual. But in this particular instance, you can see this one-touch template is set up for a tornado warning, and I actually have two of them within my system. I've got a 1A to where AlertAware is initiating Alertus, and then I've got a 1B where Alertus is initiating AlertAware, and AlertAware is going to inherit the notification content directly from Alertus. But in this particular instance, it's set up to target a group. And I do know that a good number of the customers, many of you that are on the phone, you have multiple locations, geographically separated locations that you're operating, to where in this particular threat, you may want to be location specific, or you may want to be enterprise wide. But in the event that you do want to be location specific, setting up these one-touch templates to support that type of an approach, to where you can either be enterprise wide or granular, is very important. And it's not an overly complex process to establish these, very similar to working within the Alertus notification system. I'm sure, many of you are familiar with the preset alert cloning capability that kind of gives you that, makes things go a little bit quicker. You have the ability to do something very similar within AlertAware. So this type of this aspect of the configuration, as I mentioned, it can be a bit daunting for larger organizations with a lot of preset alerts, but it can also be quite similar depending upon exactly how you want AlertAware to behave. If you want it to inherit that notification content and nothing more, in this particular instance, really the whole reason why I've got this labeled as a tornado warning is that within AlertAware on the push notification, I want it to lead with tornado alert and then inherit the message content from Alertus. But really, we'd be focusing on, let's say, for example, you have 11 different locations and one enterprise. We would have 12 one-touch templates potentially that would be set up to work with Alertus, that would target all and then target individual groups. And the great thing about AlertAware, very similar to what you can do within Alertus, you have the ability, you don't have to initiate multiple preset alerts within Alertus to target different groups within the AlertAware mobile app, you have the ability to nest those alert services that target those groups within Alertus. And I know that's kind of a mouthful, but this slide may be a little bit assistive in that effort. But obviously, when we're working with you all one-on-one, we will take the time with you all to ensure that what we're sharing with you has meaning and that it's resonating and is useful information to you all. So when it comes to the Alertus notification system, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to integrate Alertus to be able to activate AlertAware, and it does so identically to the way that it currently activates the Alertus mobile app through the alert service approach. So what we will do is we will create an alert service for each of the one-touch templates that you created within AlertAware that you want Alertus to be able to activate. And for those of you that have worked with alert services, really the service name or the name that you assign to that alert service will be the thing that will hopefully be assistive in ensuring that you know exactly which alert services to nest within given preset alerts. Now, once we've got those alert services created, then we'll work with you through your preset alert list, at least those that are targeting mobile functionalities, because we do understand that not necessarily every alert will target a mobile endpoint. But for those that do, or for those that you want to add that mobile capacity to, we'll work with you to edit those existing preset alerts. The initial recommendation during this process is that we simply add the new preset alerts, I'm sorry, the new alert services to those preset alerts and then save them out. We don't delete, in this case, the Alertus demo mobile that you see down here. We would go ahead and leave this in there so that we can operate these in parallel until we decide to cut over. All right. So once we get done with that, then we're going to create custom event triggers. Or we may just be editing custom event triggers, depending upon whether incident reporting is new to you or something that you're already using. Obviously, if you want to keep the incident reporting via the Recipient app active, then we would be cloning or duplicating existing custom event triggers and just kind of changing up the some of the logic, if you will, that's going to come in. AlertAware is going to pass incident report information to the Alertus server identically to the way that the Recipient app does it today. So it comes in as a mobile panic event, and it contains all the data that's associated with that particular packet. And anything within that packet, we have the ability to scrutinize as our criteria. In this particular case, the example that you see on the screen is that, and this is for my demo system, so I've got to be, I have to be logged in user specific just to make sure that we aren't activating each other's alerts. No different than a K through 12 district, trying to make sure that somebody at the elementary school isn't inadvertently activating alerts over at the high school. This very same type of approach would likely be taken to where we're going to scrutinize who that logged in user is, and then we're going to look at the incident type, and we can get even more detailed from there. If you're familiar with the custom event triggers, we basically use Boolean logic, a series of if, then, and or statements within the advanced settings area that's not expanded on the screen to kind of render that determination as to whether the custom event trigger results in a true or a false condition. In the event that it populates true, in this case, if the logged in user that initiated the incident report is B. Brewer, and the incident type that came in it contains active shooter, in this particular instance, I'm going to have the system send an intruder lockdown. Identically to the way that you can do it today, We have the ability to initiate multiple preset alerts, depending upon exactly what your response protocols are. So that will not represent a change for you at all. And that's arguably where I think the custom event trigger cloning process is probably going to be an enhancer in this process, because we won't necessarily have to start from scratch when we work with you all. Once we have that all in place, then we can go ahead and get into testing. And we do again, as I mentioned earlier, I honestly believe that the largest aspect of this is the education and awareness undertaking with your stakeholders. That's a very arduous and sometimes, depending upon the industrial sector, you might be limited by contractual limitations with regard to engaging with certain stakeholder groups outside of a certain period. There are a lot of different things that can impact the effectiveness of this particular effort, but we do recognize that this is very complex. And as I mentioned before, we're here to support you also along the way. Should you have ideas for stakeholder facing collateral, videos that might be useful, things of that nature, please share those with us and we will be more than happy to generate them. We're working on generating a stakeholder facing video that your current recipients can view, just so that they can see the way that the mobile app behaves and get that understanding, as well as a piece of collateral that we'll make available to you all as a PDF that will kind of have information specific to the mobile app on one side, and then some FAQs from an end stakeholder perspective, because we do recognize there'll be a lot of concerns with regard to privacy. What are you tracking? What are you not? How protected is my personal data, and things of that nature. So while that effort continues, what we would recommend with regard to testing is, perhaps during this migration process, you already have test alerts that we're going to replicate and be able to leverage within AlertAware. But if not, let's go ahead and build up some preset alerts. Start small, do some push notification testing just to get you all familiar with it, having the mobile app in your hands, so that you can really get familiar with the user experience, and then perhaps branch out to where, it's a larger segment, a group, a number of groups, or perhaps even all, whatever best fits your use case. If you're going to make use of incident reporting, we'll definitely want to test that capability out to make sure that incident reports that you do not want to automatically activate a preset alert are not doing so. Make sure that incident reports that you do want to activate preset alerts are doing exactly what you want it to do. Obviously, take some time to capture and sit back and evaluate the test results. Alter your test approach if necessary. Conduct some retesting, update the configurations either within AlertAware or Alertus if that's indicated in the test results, retest, and then once you're happy with the system, identify a cutover date. We do recommend that when you identify the cutover date, that you go ahead and schedule the removal of the Alertus mobile alert service from those presets, either the night before you cut over or early in the day on the cutover date. And then once you are completely satisfied that things are operating the way they should, we do recommend that at some point, and you can even wait until the Alertus recipient mobile app is no longer working before you actually remove those alert services completely from your Alertus notification system. But we definitely do recommend that those get removed once the recipient app is no longer viable within your organization, just to mitigate the chance that somebody, especially if they find themselves in a custom activation type protocol, they might inadvertently select the the wrong alert service, if you will, and think that they're activating the Alertus, the AlertAware mobile app when in fact they're trying to activate the Alertus Recipient app. So with that, I'll bring my comments to the close and kind of open up for any questions that you all have. And you can either enter those into chat or into the Q&A.
Ben, our first question is, are you implementing single sign-on, or is that something in the future?
Yeah, Bill, we will have the ability to support single sign-on. I think what we'll need to understand from you all, and we most certainly can discuss this in our conversation, is which single sign-on mechanism are you guys currently using? What we currently support is Google SSO. We also support Microsoft Entra ID single sign-on, and we just, so Microsoft Azure, which is now Entra ID. So we most certainly can't implement that, but that would be, we'd want to get you migrated and then kind of come back and work toward the Entra ID. But we most certainly can have that discussion with you, Bill, because there might be some sort of consideration on your end that makes it imperative that we address that earlier. So kind of a mix.
Our next question is, what members of our organization should be a part of the initial migration discussion?
Well, I would recommend that the individual that owns the Alertus notification system within the organization participate. Not the executive owner, but the functional area owner, if you will, if it's occupational safety and health. If it is security, if it's emergency management, I would recommend that we get that primary stakeholder in there. But I would also recommend that we have perhaps some representation from the, I'm going to use the word dispatcher type area. Those individuals that are primarily responsible in the organization for activating alerts. I think it would be beneficial to involve them early and often. If you have an IT team that is that will have security questions and things of that nature, which is fully understandable, I'd recommend bringing them in early too, so that we can get them the information that they need to be able to approve the system.
Thanks, Ben. Our next question is, what is the oldest server allowed?
The oldest server build, as far as Alertus architecture that will support this functionality, is the latest 5.22. So we will need to migrate you forward to 5.22. I do see in the question, I see 2016, 2019. So that might be, you might be referring to the Windows Server version, the latest. We do currently support back to Microsoft Windows Server 2016. So that's fine, so long as we're on Alertus Server version 5.22.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. That concludes the Q&A section of this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Ben. His email is shown on the screen, or events@alertus.com, and we'll be happy to connect you with the right person. Thanks and have a great day.